What's up, folks? Dave here. Sorry it's been a while, but I've got some interesting information here. Well, at least a very interesting theory. And with WandaVision about to premiere as of Friday, I think this is the perfect time to drop some knowledge. Look, I was so excited about this. I just got out of my dialysis clinic, and the idea hit me when I was in the chair. Now, I could have made a video while I was in there, but A, I didn't want to spoil anything for anybody that may not have been watching the shows or movies. And B, I didn't want to do an entire video wearing a frickin' mask. So that's why I'm in my car. So, anyway, WandaVision's about to drop. Now, we know that WandaVision is involving Wanda Maximoff and Vision from the MCU, where apparently each episode they start going through different weird time periods, like starting in the 50s, where they essentially go through a different sitcom world. And each episode has a different thing where something not quite right with reality and things are jumping around. Well, I started putting some pieces together, and here's my idea. Now, science says that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. Well, in Avengers Endgame, when we realized that Thanos snapped away the Infinity Stones, the backlash burned him horribly, and he did it so that no one could ever try to assemble the gems to do anything else. So, all that power had to go somewhere. Well, here's what I'm thinking. When Wanda came back, thanks to Professor Hulk snapping her into existence, I'm thinking that energy, because she was a conduit for it, had to go somewhere. So, same thing with Captain Marvel. She effectively got power from the Tesseract, aka the Space Stone. So, my theory is, if that energy has to go somewhere, I'm guessing that both Wanda and Carol, aka Captain Marvel, are tapping more into that power. And as things continue to go on in the shows and movies, they're going to grow in power, which means I think that Carol could one day do what she does in the comic books, which by absorbing enough energy, I think she could actually tap into her binary form. Basically, think of it like going Super Saiyan. And Wanda, I mean, in the MCU, her powers are technically like telekinesis and some version of telepathy, where she could also give people freaking nightmares and give them visions, basically. Well, that power comes from the Mind Stone. And same thing with Quicksilver. Her brother got super speed. Why? Because basically he's moving closer, if not surpassing, the speed of thought. Okay, so that's where the reflection is. But with Wanda, see, things get a little tricky because the place of the mind, if you can imagine it, then in a weird way, the landscape of the mind and imagination is like its own separate reality. So that's one thing. Somewhere things kind of blend together. Just like in Star Trek Next Generation, Wesley Crusher figured out from the Traveler that time, space, and thought aren't the separate elements we all think they are, but are actually intertwined on different frequencies or whatever. Well, I was also looking up the definition of the ether. You know, the reality stone. That ether, it has an interesting history. It's not just a thing about talking about the sky, but some say it's also what exists outside of Earth's atmospheric sphere. Essentially, it makes up the whole universe. Or at one point, it was the very propagation of everything the universe existed inside of, and also, created the propagation of electromagnetic radiation, or basically everything at one point was crammed into the ether. So the ether is everywhere, all at once. Now that's important. The ether in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is also red. What color is Wanda's powers? red. So in the comic books, she's manipulating reality. She's able to alter probabilities. It's like chaos theory from Jurassic Park or other things. Basically, these little differences about how things can go one way compared to another. All of these things are altered. So basically, when she's casting her hexes in the comics, she's altering probability to, okay, what if this happened? What if that happened instead? And it could be pretty freaky. She doesn't always have control of it, but technically she's incredibly powerful. Well, you already know that, but you guys are thinking about someone along the line of Jean Grey. This is more so. In the comic books, Earth 616, Wanda is able to alter probabilities. And I think that's what's happening now, because here's the kicker. In Marvel, time travel isn't just cause, effect, and the ripple effect there in a straight line. No. What they have it is that if you go back in time, you are going into a past timeline, all right, that is very familiar to you. But technically, you never existed as the time traveler in it before. So in a very minutia quantum state, you're essentially creating a new alternate timeline that just happens to be close to yours. But when you time travel back to your present, you're going back to your timeline, your universe. Now, this has actually been standing for a long time. This is why when the Avengers went back to their original time, for the future from that past, they didn't affect anything because they were going back to their core time. Effectively, every time they went back in time, they created or entered into an alternate timeline. They did the same thing with comics for the longest time. This was the original Guardians of the Galaxy in the comic books, where they were originally from the 30th century, and they traveled back to the 20th century. But when they go back to their time, everything they did didn't ripple back to their time. They go back to their original timeline. Okay? So essentially, it's like different realities that just happens to go back on a certain line in time. Okay? Well, here's the thing. Realizing that every time the Avengers went back in time to get another stone, here's where it gets weird. Every time they went back in time to get another stone, they effectively entered into an alternate timeline, an alternate reality that they themselves and their existence created. So when they brought the stones together for the Gauntlet 2.0 that Stark made and Professor Hulk used to snap everyone back into reality, technically each stone came from a separate, slightly different reality. Now, we're talking about 6 different realities. The one that Loki ended up getting away from when they went back to the past and he got the Tesseract and escaped, which he's going to be in his own series, Loki, is a 7th. Plus they entered through the microverse, a separate reality. But that's still a 7th for them to form into the Gauntlet 2.0 that Professor Hulk used, and eventually what Tony Stark used to snap Thanos out of existence. That's an 8th reality. Now, in the comic books, each set of Infinity Stones are centralized to their own universe. And there's different colors for them. And the rule's always been that, as powerful as the Infinity Stones are, they normally cannot operate outside of their universe. So you can take an Infinity Gauntlet from one reality, go to another, and it'll just be dead because it's not plugged into its universe, so it can't work. The thing is, we're talking about minutiae differences from alternate realities with the same colors and combining into one medium. In other words, the Infinity War. Not Infinity War, but the Endgame timeline. Now we're talking about quantum variations from that universe. Quantum differences. But I think what happens is because they were the same colors and there was a viable enough timeline, whatever force powered them allowed them to sync up. Effectively, the universe said, screw it, close enough. The thing is, this is what the Ancient One was warning about the consequences of things. Now, the heroes did use the gauntlet for the right reason. They did bring everyone back and it snapped out of existence. But they effectively did what shouldn't happen. They used Infinity Stones from technically 6 separate alternate realities that just happen to be a cohesive timeline to make it work. This isn't good, guys. Basically, they did save the day, but by doing so, those ripples are going to go out. And because of that, that means that the very fabric of reality in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become weakened, frayed. This is the reason why the Infinity Gauntlets can't operate outside their own universe is a safety catch. It's to make sure that the power doesn't get abused or it doesn't affect the entire universe in a bad way. But because of the wiggle room, because effectively they were using like different puzzle pieces from 6 separate puzzles put together into a 7th that just had minor variations that you couldn't tell immediately, but it's like, close enough. That ripple effect is going to grow bigger and bigger. That's why we're going to be getting Marvel's What If. That's why one of the next big things we're going to have is the movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And Wanda is going to be in it. Because, unfortunately now, Wanda has become a living nexus of possibility. Those little things that are happening to her are cracks, not just in her reality, in her mind, but in reality itself. So yeah, this is dangerous. This also might explain why certain characters like Deadpool, who's coming into the MCU, can break the fourth wall. Due to what's going on in his messed up, cancer-filled mind, when he's breaking the fourth wall, he's not just being funny. He's seeing us. That fourth wall is seeing through his reality into ours. Same thing that Rick Sanchez does in Rick and Morty. Same thing that the She-Hulk did for a while in the comics. And every time there's a fourth wall break, it means there's a fracture in there, a crack. And somebody with the right mindset can peer through to see the multiverse. The multiverse of madness may be Wanda Maximoff and her head itself. And because Vision was also a House of the Mind Stone and she loved him, that might be why he was pulled in to her psyche. She and he have the same power source. But maybe, are we going to be able to get Vision back out of that crack? Who knows? But as Wanda has a mental breakdown, that means that her head is a living nexus. Now, if you've ever played Rifts by Palladium books, then you know how dangerous this can be. All of reality, all of possibilities are going to start going through her cracks. This may be how we ended up getting the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Basically, the multiverse is open, and Wanda is one of the many doors. I say many because she's a living doorway. And now, we're going to start seeing things through the eyes of the Watcher. For What If? We're going to see Doctor Strange trying to repair it. Much like shaman, magic users in the universe are there to understand the power of nature, in this case, the nature of magic in the universe. But they also know not to take too much, not to damage it. Otherwise, they're damaging their environment that it works in. he was already pushing stuff with the way he bent the time stone in this fight with Dormammu. But if I'm right, this is what the ripple effect is going to have with all the realities in the MCU going forward. So, that's my idea, that's my thoughts. What do you guys think? Please like, comment, subscribe, share. Sorry I've been away for a while, but I've had things to do in the real world. Let's face it, the real world sucks. But now I'm trying to come back, and I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about my theory about WandaVision and how Wanda may have actually become a living nexus point? Peace.